Okay. Then that one. Still talking about planning here. Here's another handout. And all of these handouts, Logan, are on under files. Principles of the planning process, from feeding and leading, from Gangle's book. And notice this whole handout is all about, well, he's already said planning is an investment, not an expenditure. Planning requires attention to choices. Planning is cyclical. It just goes around just like that growth cycle, organizational growth cycle. It just is an ongoing circle. Every year for Black Friday, I go through the same planning process again, checking out the ads, looking to see when the store's open, orchestrating how I'm going to go. The only thing I do different now, because of the way the world has changed, I went to JCPenney's in Lee Summit and got a bunch of stuff and put it in the back seat of my car. And then Macy's didn't open for an hour, so I was going to sit in the Macy's parking lot and then go in and shop at Macy's, and I thought, no, I'm 15 minutes from my house. How has the world changed in the last 5 years in Kansas City? You go into Macy's with a whole bunch of packages in your back seat, and you'll probably come out of Macy's with the window broken on your car and the package is gone.
It's kind of a depressing outlook on life.
Isn't that sad that we have to think like that?
Belton.
Yeah.
Belton's special like that.
What?
Belton's kind of the rough side of Kansas.
It is? Well, I'm not even sure I could trust Lee Summit, so I brought the packages home and went back. And driving down the highway, somebody in a hurry pulls in front of me and cuts me off, and I want to honk my horn and say, hey, be careful. And it's like, no. Remember that thing on the news about road rage? Somebody honked at somebody and they pulled over and got their gun and started shooting at them. Has life changed in America in the last 5 years? What has happened to us? Anyway, this stuff just goes in cycles. So sometimes you have to make some adjustments on changes that take place. Planning helps us note relationships between determining what we want to do and realizing that end. I kept thinking, how come I didn't go to Home Depot or Lowe's this year? They didn't have as good of deals as everybody else had. So I just left them out of the loop. Planning requires maximum participation. No, I'm the only one that does it. None of my family members do. They all think I'm strange to get up and go out there and do that stuff. Until it comes time for the white elephant gift exchange, and then they're all cashing in. Okay, so anyway, this handout is for the thing that's turned sideways there, that chart. So let's just talk about the organization that we're a part of here at Calvary. Let's see, I'm a teacher. Down at the bottom of the list. So today, I spend 38% of my time planning for today and another 40% planning for the week. That's 78% of my time. And another 15% for the month which means when this class ends, I've got some other classes I have to be ready for, and another 5 and 2% for the next 6 months in the next year. You follow what's going on? I'm teaching, so I'm doing all of my planning immediately. Now let's go up to the top to the president of our university. And how much of his time is he, where's he spending 30% of his planning time? 3 to 4 years. And 25% 2 years. And why only 1% today? Because he's the guy who's out there looking down the road. And then all the people in between have varying degrees of planning. So that's what that was about, to show you where when your position in an organization changes, you're going to have to change the way you plan things. You can't keep planning on a day-to-day basis and a week-to-week basis when you move up into a higher position in an organization. That's pretty obvious, but people forget that. All right, what's the next one I have here? This is from Engstrom on planning. Since everybody talks about planning, I'll give you everybody's perspective on it. Planning starts with goals. Planning tries to write the future. Planning is an arrow. Planning is a process. Planning takes time. Planning is both personal and corporate. Planning involves people. Planning communicates our intentions.
Hey, how many times do you cancel a
Steps and plans are sub-goals. And the planning process. You start with your goal. You gather ideas. You sort out the steps. You establish dates. You assign personnel. You design an evaluation system. Aha, we didn't do. I mean, just think our refreshments that we have here. We started with a goal to figure out what to bring for snacks. We gathered ideas. We sorted out the ideas on the board and the steps to take. Who's going to bring what? We established. We didn't put dates on it. We established who's bringing what. We assigned people to bring it. So now we're doing number 6, evaluation. So how did this snack thing work out? I would say you people keep sitting here chomping down on stuff.
Worked pretty good.
Like you're having a picnic today. Is it helping this class go down a little better to be 5 hours in class with all these snacks and refreshments? And you know why you guys are getting some peach applesauce today?
Because they were on sale.
Because my wife suggested that I bring some peach applesauce. And I said, okay. Should I bring some more tomorrow?
Yeah, I actually kind of liked it.
Pretty good.
Have you had peach applesauce before? Did you like it? Yeah, everybody I serve it to likes it. So I'll bring some more peach applesauce tomorrow. So the design and evaluation system, we just talk about, so how are these snacks working out? And organize and display your plans. Well, I don't know if we did that. Work your plan, we definitely did that, didn't we? We worked our plan and we got all this good stuff here. So what is this turned sideways here? A project chart.
For a long time ago.
Now, what kind of project is this? It's going to have a speaker. So they've got how many people in this? How many people are involved in this project? A guy named Brown, Jones, Smith, White, and Avis. and Brown and Avis are working on the speaker. They're supposed to have a speaker selected by January 11th of 1972. That's an old book, isn't it? But the principles still apply.
I think they're late.
Program outline, Jones is working on that. Select a site, Smith is working on that, and he's supposed to have that done by the 22nd. You see how this little chart assigns responsibilities to people and when they're supposed to have them done? You like that little chart? Good. Well, then that's why I gave it to you, so you have something to use and put it in your toolbox and use it in the future. What's this other thing I have on planning? Just more stuff on planning.
Storyboarding.
Summary of the planning process. Well, let's see. Before we start planning, we should do what? Recognize that God has a plan for us. You've learned that, haven't you, from your interviews? That you really need to make sure that what you're doing is what God's called you to do. And recognize that God is the source of the power. This is from Management of Biblical Approach, the chapter on planning, page 86. And then you identify the purpose of the activity. Visualize the plan being completed. Develop objectives. Identify the activities. Place the activities in proper sequence. Determine the resources needed. And then he gives a storyboard for another tool. Turn it over to the back. It's from page 88. And page 89, it tells you how to use this storyboard. Okay, let's talk about somebody planning a banquet at a church. So they've got someone from the previous one, someone getting the speaker, someone doing the program outline, somebody picking the site, somebody taking care of the budget. So what's missing on this project list? Who's going to set up for the banquet? I don't know how many times I've been invited to be a banquet speaker at a church somewhere, and I always try to get there a little early just so I can kind of get a sense of what's going on and not have to be coming in right at the last minute. And I get there early, and what do I find? Nobody had planned to have somebody set things up, so everybody's scurrying around, getting things out. So I just pitch in and start helping. Why didn't someone put that on the planning chart to set things up for the banquet? I don't know. So the banquet's over, and I'm sticking around visiting with people after I speak, and I'm ready to go get in my car. Oh no. What's the last announcement that's always made at every banquet? We need to put all the tables and chairs away. So could some of you able-bodied men, have you heard that before? Why wasn't that on the project list to have some people assigned to do the cleanup and put away at the end? So I'm thinking, well, here we are again, folks. Someone fumbled the ball in the planning process. So I start folding up chairs and folding up tables and helping put things away at the end. And I just asked myself on my way home, why don't people do a more thorough job of planning? And my conclusion is, that they haven't taken administrative process with me. So I can show them how to do it. But can you see where that project list is? I mean, it's pretty obvious. There's some stuff missing that often people put big ticket stuff on there and they don't put the small stuff. And I tell you what, this is so sad, but I have been to banquets and programs where it was really first class stuff. And then at the end, they asked for people to help put furniture away, and it took away from the whole thing. When all they would have had to do is just to have some people scheduled to do that. All they'd have to announce is that, okay, those of you who signed up to serve on the cleanup committee, and as soon as everybody clears out, we need to start putting the tables and chairs away to get ready for whatever's going to happen on Sunday. And it's so much better when it's done that way, rather than just asking, because you know what happens when you ask people to stay after and help? They've already made plans. And they feel guilty when they leave, but they already made commitments. Just put it in your planning process for all the things that you want to happen. Okay, that's enough of that one. Let's go to week 4. What's in week 4?
Another week, another dollar.
Another week, another day, another dollar. What is this one? Time management. We're all about time management here. So what am I giving you? So how good are you at managing your time? Time management questions. Well, he says who, what, when, why, where, and how are good planning activities. I thought we were taught to use that for writing papers, weren't we, or something? Doing book reports, who, what, when, where, how, and why. Were you taught to use those questions when you were doing book reports earlier in life? Well, look what it says. So, time management. Who can I delegate this task to? What? My wife is getting ready for all the family coming over for the White Elephant gift exchange. And she's sorting packages and going through all this stuff and wrapping it up and trying to figure out what to do with it. And I call her on my way home from a wrestling match or a ball game or from school here, and I say, so Nina, what's going on? She goes, I've spent the whole day wrapping packages and I'm just exhausted. This is what she said on Saturday when I'm coming back from a wrestling match up at Excelsior Springs, and she said, can you pick up something for supper? What did she just do? She spent all of her time wrapping packages for the party that night. So she wants to know if I can bring home something for supper. And I said, how about Subway? She says, that sounds good. And then I said, do you need anything else? And she delegated to me that she needed some stuff from the grocery store. So I stopped, I said, well, I'll stop at Hy-Vee. And I said, hey, since I'm there, maybe I'll get Chinese instead of going to Subway. Oh, she said, that sounds good, whatever. And I check out Chinese at Hy-Vee. How do they sell that stuff when they charge so much for a tiny little serving of Chinese food? That's disgusting. But now I've got my heart set on Chinese. But there's a Chinese restaurant behind DQ on 58 Highway. Have any of you ever been there? It's just a tiny little restaurant. Delicious Chinese food. And those big containers you get when you take your lunch out from Calvary's cafeteria, they will give you one of those for $9.50. And you can fill it up at their buffet for whatever you want. And I can fill one of those things up with food, and it's enough for both my wife and I to have a complete meal. $10 for the Chinese meal, sign me up. So you see, first is, who can I delegate this task to? Now, she could have said, I'll go ahead and fix dinner and I'll delegate the wrapping packages to Tom. Bad idea. You focus on doing what you can do best and then delegate other jobs to other people. What can you simplify? Oh, so my wife figured that one out. Wrapping all these packages for all these white elephant gifts can take a lot of wrapping paper. Aha, wait a minute. What if I go to the after Christmas sale, and have you ever seen those little sacks, gift bags that you can buy? What if I buy gift bags on sale, and then what is that little crinkly paper? Tissue paper? Okay, so I buy gift bags and tissue paper. Now all she has to do to wrap all these presents is just to do what? Stick it in a gift bag and put tissue paper on top of it. That simplifies. So how can I simplify the process of doing something? When? In answering when, we may postpone or set up. When's the best time to do this? Well, if the party's on Saturday night, is the best time to do it? No, if the party's on Sunday afternoon, is Saturday the best time to do it? For my wife it is. Well, isn't that a little last minute? Well, yeah, but some people thrive on last minute stuff, and some people don't. And give people that latitude. In answering why, we may eliminate the job altogether. Why are we doing this? Why do we wrap these things? Why don't we just lay them out there on the floor and let people choose one? Because it's what? More fun to have a package to open. Where? Where do we do this? She did all this stuff downstairs in the basement where we live. And all these packages have to be carried upstairs. Back to delegation again. She'll have the grandsons carry all the packages upstairs when it comes time for the party on Sunday afternoon. And the last question, so how can we improve this process in the future? And on Sunday afternoon, we had a wonderful white elephant gift exchange. And what made it so good, and my wife said this, I said, Nina, you remember this next year when it comes time for Black Friday. You know what she said? Tom, all those neat things you bought at the Black Friday sale were really popular. See, I told you so. That stuff really pays off. So that's what they mean by time management questions. So where do you start with time management? On page 213, what's the first thing you do? What's it say? For number 1, 3 magic questions.
What am I doing that does not need to be
Here.
done by me?
Here's another handout. What am I doing now? What am I doing? Just take one of these little schedules and start writing down how you're spending your time. And if you use a pencil, you might decide that there's something you're doing that you don't need to be doing anymore. I don't know why, but a number of years ago, I was just enamored with reading the newspaper. I would come home from school when our girls were small, and the newspaper would be there, and I wanted to read about what was going on in the world around me. And I would come home from school, and my little daughter would run over and jump up on my lap. And I was trying to read the newspaper, and she was wanting to play, and I'd say, "Can we just play after I read the newspaper?" And she got down and crawled off and went over to play with her toys. And after I finished the paper, I said, "Do you want to play now?" And she goes, "No, not anymore." Esther, did I realize I'd made a serious mistake?
I hope so.
So, me being the radical person I am, I got on the phone and called the newspaper and canceled my subscription. So that wouldn't happen again. So I could make my daughter more important than what's going on in the world around me. Now, today, okay, I don't have subscription to newspapers anymore, but I get all this stuff on the computer. So I'm downstairs on my computer, typing away, or working or grading papers or doing anything, and my daughter walks downstairs. She goes, "Hi, Dad." I said, "Hi, how's it going?" She said, "Oh, I just come down to talk to Mom." And she goes by my office, down the hall, into the living room, and sits down on the couch and starts talking to her mother. What would you suggest I do? Keep working on my computer, or just stop and get up and walk in there and sit down in a chair and listen to their conversation? These guys are looking at me like, I don't know, what should I do? You guys, I wish you could see Esther's.
Private conversation.
What?
It could be a private conversation. I don't know.
Okay. If you could have seen Esther's face when I was that, I mean, she didn't even hesitate. She's going, you get off the computer, you walk into the other room, you sit down in your chair, and you listen to these two ladies have their conversation. And try not to interrupt. And if they're discussing something that needs to be fixed, keep your mouth shut. They don't want you telling them how to fix things. Agreed?
Most of the time.
They just want you there listening. It's nuts, guys. I'm telling you, it's the craziest thing in the world. And God gave me a wife and 2 daughters. He put 3 women in my life to say, can you figure it out, Tom? Learn that these people are a priority, and that you just have to make them a priority. And that's what you do with your time. You say, you know what? I just have to say that this is how I spend my time. This is what I do. And if I'm right in the middle of something, I just get up and walk away, because the girls just like to have me there listening to them visit. And often they'll invite me into the conversation. Just remember, Tom, they didn't come down here for you to tell them how to make the world work. If anything, when they came home from school as teenagers, Dad, I had a terrible day. That's like, well, it couldn't be that terrible. You know, just like, okay, what made it so terrible? Well, and then I've got all these solutions for how they could not have a terrible day tomorrow. That's not what they need. And I finally figured out. I said, you know, girl, I don't know what to say. Maybe you just need a big hug. And I would squeeze them till their back would pop. And here's what they would say, guys. I feel so much better now. Now, I have no idea why that helped anything, but I just know that You just do that kind of stuff. You just make a plan. It's just like you say, okay, this is how I manage my time. I plan to do the things that need to be done by me, and somebody else can't do it. And I eliminate some things, so the newspaper goes. And I'll put off watching the news because I have to do something else. I'll quit reading on the computer. I'll just leave it there and come back to it later. What am I doing that should be done by someone else? Or what am I doing? This is number 3 on page 213. What am I doing that's wasting my time? You know, most of the books on time management will tell you that eliminating time wasters is one of the most valuable things you can do in time management. Eliminating things that waste your time. And the best way to find them, and it says where to begin. Decide what it is that you want to do with your life. And that's what this handout's for. Let's see, here we are on Tuesday. So how do you want to spend your time for the rest of this week? Say, well, I know how I'm going to spend from 8 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, so just write on there, from 8 to 1, this is what I'm going to be doing. 8 to 1. Right there. Class. Just put it in every time. Class. And for Logan, there's one of these on one of these time management worksheets under files, and then class. So that takes care of till 1 o'clock. Now what are you going to do? Well, let's see. As soon as class is over, I'm going to call Nina. Why am I going to call Nina, people?
It's your goal.
What am I going to ask her?
She wants fish sandwich.
What?
She wants a fish sandwich.
You would like to have a fish sandwich from McDonald's for lunch? That's right. Now, I'll ask her what I normally ask when I call. Do you need anything from the store? Because I'm on my way home. Why should she get out and go to the store if I can stop and pick it up on the way? But this week I'm going to say, do you want a fish sandwich? Then, and if she says yes, then I'm going to stop and get it. If she says no, I don't need anything, I'm going to go on home. And what am I going to do when I get home by about 2 o'clock? Upload. Logan's going to like this. Upload the videos. Can you believe this? When I got home yesterday, I started uploading the videos for this class, and it takes 5 hours to upload the videos for this class. It took me till 7 o'clock last night to get all the video off of my flash drive up to Canvas.
If you upload them from here, it'll go a lot faster. The internet goes really fast at Calvary.
But I don't know how to do it from here.
You can't log into Canvas on this computer?
I probably could, but you have to upload it to YouTube, and then from YouTube to Canvas. So I'll just go on home and spend. Well, that's okay, because if my computer's tied up because it's uploading it to YouTube, what does that mean I get to do after I start to upload? After sitting here and talking to you all morning, what do you think? The old guy is probably what, ready for a, you know any old people?
No.
That's exactly right. So I'm going to put down, take a nap. Yeah, put that down. Take a nap. Start uploading those videos and take a nap. You say, don't you feel guilty about taking a nap? Nope, not at all. It's part of my fitness program. You know, people don't get enough sleep in this world.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to take care of that by getting my fair share of it. Okay, so that means I'll take a nap from about 3 to about 6. That'll work. I'm starting to like this schedule already. And then what? Well, it looks like we've got company at our house, so I will put down company from there until time to go to bed at 10 o'clock. And then get to bed and get some sleep so I have class, because I have class the next day. So today and tomorrow, we have company that flew in that are going to be here for a while, so I better not plan to do anything else except hang out with the company. It looks like Tuesday and Wednesday have already been spent. So what do I do Thursday and Friday? I'm going to leave that open for now and fill that in later. Put this little puppy in my pocket. It's got instructions on the back on how to use it. Now, when I used to help students fill these out, when I was on campus and I was an academic advisor, and I would have students come and see and say, Dr. Bonine, I am just so busy, I don't have time to get everything done. And I would pull one of these out and say, let's fill this thing out and see where all your time is going. And we would start filling that thing out. Does that fit in there like that? Good. We would start filling out that schedule and writing down what needs to be done, schedules. And then I would say, you better put some time in here just for goofing off. I mean, everybody. And they go, no, I don't think I should do that. I said, you know, I'm thinking if you don't put some time to goof off, you're going to go crazy. So pick some slots in here for just goofing off. Just relaxing, just unwinding. And then see what happens. And by the time you get through filling out that chart, okay, here's what'll happen. This most often happened when I was doing it with students. They would say, you know, I think probably I'm spending too much time doing, and they would identify something that they were spending too much time doing on their chart. I said, okay, so let's plan for this next week to cut that back. You don't have to cut it out completely, but let's cut that back and limit that time. And then let's spend the time that you used to spend there, let's spend it someplace else. And you just decide. You take the time you have every week and decide how you're going to spend it. And then once you've got your schedule made out, then you just follow it. Now, you know why I'm happy to leave that last, oh, I didn't give you the second page. Here's the second page that goes with this one. You know why I'm happy to leave, what did I leave? Thursday and Friday open? Because I don't know what's going to happen on Thursday and Friday, but I'm glad to keep it open for what might come up on Thursday or Friday. In other words, I'm not going to, this page I just gave you talks about filling up your calendar. Okay, I should have brought one with me. I've been living for years with a little pocket calendar that fits right now. Here's the kind I use right now. This is the kind of calendar I use right now. These kind like this. Okay? And I just put everything I have to do is in these little boxes. And then I keep it here in my briefcase. It used to be that I had a little calendar that just like that shows a week at a glance. I would have one that was like a little book that fit in my pocket. So when I opened it up, it was only this big and it had a week at a glance. And I could write in each little square what I had going on that day. And somebody said to me one time, that's not a big enough calendar. And I said, it's big enough for me because when I have all the lines, there were like 5 lines on each day. When I have all those lines filled up, then that takes care of all my days, all the time I have to spend. I don't want a calendar that has a whole page for each day where I can put too much on the page and not get it done. And this handout I just gave you, when it says what kind of calendar is best, this is page 228 from the Art of Management for Christian Leaders, and it basically is, it's the kind that fits you best. What kind do you like best? You find a calendar that works for you, and then keep using it. And some people just make their own, but I like buying those kind that flip open like that, and see. And I see a whole. Well, that one actually. What does this one do? This one here. See, when you flip this one open, it shows a whole month. So, and I buy these at Menards for like a couple bucks, and I just bought another one for next year and stuck it back here somewhere. What's it look like? I think here it is. Isn't that pretty? And I think I paid, it says $10 on the back. No, it says $6 on the back, and I think I paid $1.50 or $2 for it. And it goes from August 2018 until July of 2020. And I picked it up at Menards, and when you open it up, there you go. Here's September for 2019, and it's got the whole month. So I see the whole month when I open it up, and I write stuff in there that I need to do. And this is the kind, now the way I live, that works fine for me. Prior to that, I had the one that I looked at a week at a glance. I just had to keep my eye on a week at a time. So I'd open it up, and there would be Sunday through Saturday. So you find one that works for you, or make up your own. But whatever you do, get a calendar. Get some kind of calendar where you keep track of what's going on in your life. And find one that fits your personality, so that you can basically, the whole point of having a calendar is so that you can manage your time. Because if you don't decide to manage your time, somebody else will manage it for you. Or other things will manage it for you. And often it will be things that aren't very worthwhile. Okay, just in case you're looking for some options, wouldn't you know, the Art of Management has a little daily planning sheet here, just to give you some ideas on how you can do this stuff. And I think it's a good sheet. It's just I don't use it because I have something else I use. But what I like about this handout is that it has a daily planning sheet, letters to write, people to see, phone calls to make, things to get done, things to be planned, items to be obtained. And then it says put the priority in this column. In my little book that used to fit in my pocket, sometimes my week would be so full of stuff that I would have to plan to do a lot of shopping on Saturday. And so my wife would say during the week, remember on Saturday you need to go here and buy this. And I'd open my book up and on Saturday write that in there. And then the next day, something else, I said, oh, I'm out of ink. I need to go to Office Max and get some ink for my printer. So I'd write that in there too, Office Max, the printer. And then I'd say grocery store, because I know my wife's going to need some groceries. And so then when Saturday gets here, or Friday night, I look at my list of stuff to do on Saturday, and I'm going, okay, let's see, how am I going to do this? I think I'll go to Office Max first, that's number 1, and then Walmart 2, and then Price Chopper 3, you follow me, and then the gas station 4. In other words, I put it in order so that I'm going in the most efficient way to get all the things done. And sometimes on Saturday, I would have such a long list of things to do that I couldn't fit them all in my book. So I'd have to pull out one of these little index cards and write it on the back of this index card. And so now the index card has a whole list of 10 or 12 things, and all of this is supposed to be done on Saturday. And I would look at it and smile, because I knew already by looking at the list, it was longer than what I'm going to get done on Saturday. But the reason I'm smiling about it is because I'm going to look at it over. I say, what do I do first? And I put number one, I prioritize them. And so I have 12 things on the list, but I only got 7 of them done. That means I have 5 more to either try to squeeze into next week or put off till next Saturday. But I got the 7 most important things done. You follow me? So you don't get all worked up about not getting something done. You just say, I'll get around to it when I get around to it. Do you have any round to-its at home? Little pieces of wood that are round, and it says T-U-I-T. It's a round to-it. Okay, so the reason I passed this one out is just for you to look at something, and see, this has appointments from 6 till 10 with every 30-minute increments. See, I'm thinking hourly increments would work for me, because my life kind of goes in hourly increments. But have you ever heard people talk about the 30-minute manager? Well, that's where this comes from. 6 to 6:30. You're going to manage your time every 30 minutes. So guess what? After a guy wrote a book on the 30-minute manager, what did another guy do the next year? He wrote a book on the 15-minute manager. So what does the guy do next? The 5-minute manager. Do I want to manage my time every 5 minutes? Now maybe you do. Go ahead if you want to, but not me. We're not going to do that, are we, Esther? That's just too stressful. Planning is not supposed to stress you out. Planning is supposed to minimize stress. You go, well, it happens that making a plan stresses me out because I'm just not sure that I'm going to be able to get it all done. So I say, well, don't make a plan and get nothing done and see how stressed you feel about that. So planning does minimize stress. It might stress you to some degree, but it's less stressful than no plan at all, where you get buried with so much work to do that you just don't get it all done, or you don't get around to it, or don't have time for it. Okay. Let's see. What's the next thing I have in here? I guess the next thing to give you in this folder has to do with, would that be right? Yeah, an overall approach. This is called the big picture. This is from chapter 12 in Dayton and Engstrom, Strategy for Leadership. This is the big picture. And what's the first step? Here's an overall outline of an approach to making the organizational cycle work in your organization. You don't have to convince people that of the entire process to get it started. You can start anywhere in the circle, and the best way to start is by asking people to give you ideas for the future. Let's just collect some ideas on how we could make this organization more effective. What could we do to improve the way we do things? I mean, any kind of question that just gets people thinking. And then what's the first step in this overall strategy? Analyze the situation. We analyzed our situation the first day of class, and what did you guys conclude? We need food if we're going to sit here for 5 hours. I'm thinking, okay, You need food? All I need is my Lipton tea. Boy, that stuff is good. It has just enough sugar. See, the tea I drink at home is homemade tea. I get tea, it's Lipton tea too, but it's Lipton tea bags that are just stuck in a jar of water and allowed to percolate. I guess that's what it does. I don't heat it up or anything. I just let it sit. I just let the bag of tea sit in the water until it gets dark enough where it's drinkable. Because that's the healthiest kind of tea for me to drink. Since I'm coming here and teaching for 5 hours, I indulge myself with a little bit of Lipton tea. If I really wanted my preference, you know what I'd be bringing to this class? A bottle of Mountain Dew. And I'd be sipping on Mountain Dew while I'm talking to you. But my doctor says that that is not something an old guy should be doing. So I've got to compromise here with this tea. So, analyze the situation. We need some snacks. And I need something to keep me going for the 5 hours too. So I'll bring a bottle of tea to class. And then what's the second step? Let the process develop the goals. So if we need some snacks, then what would be our goal? To figure out a way to get snacks in the room. And Daniel had a wonderful suggestion. What was Daniel's suggestion?
You buy them?
Daniel's suggestion was that I bring snacks.
Okay.
But see, if I would have brought all of my favorite snacks, you guys might not have liked them. So it was much more effective for me to modify Daniel's suggestion and turn it into a little class meeting exercise where we collected ideas and took ownership of them. And then brought some goodies to put on the table. Logan, I wish you could see that table back there. It just makes your mouth water, doesn't it? To look back there and see all that variety. And there's a bunch of healthy stuff too. It's not all just junk food. So you just let the process of analyzing the situation produce some goals. Let's do this. Let's make this a goal. And then what's the third step? Gather ideas for the future. So what are some things we could do? Well, did Logan have some good ideas on his little activity suggestion for youth ministry activity? Is that okay? See what could happen? So let's talk about some youth ministry. I mean, if I was meeting with Pack and Daniel and Logan, and I'd say, well, and you could be included too, Esther, but they're all youth ministry people. So let's gather some ideas for all the things we could do to work with young people. And in fact, who is this? Daniel. Daniel's got a plan here. We could probably take his plan and mess with it a little bit. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Here comes conflict.
Uh-oh. So his plan is to get more local Christians involved in his ministry. Remember he's gone to Europe? So he wants to get local Christians involved in what's the first country you're going to in Europe, Daniel?
Albania or Hungary or one of those Eastern Southern.
Albania, Hungary.
One of those. Yeah.
So let's say he's going to both. So he wants to get more local Christians involved from Albania and Hungary in the ministry. And the ministry is reaching out to young people, right? And to teens in the community. So some ideas. So let's help Daniel. So let's gather some ideas that he could use to get more local Christians involved. What can he do to get Christians involved in interacting? Is that what you want him to do? In interacting with teens in the community. Any suggestions? And Logan, you can put your suggestions on the internet under a discussion format. Or send them to me as an email attachment, either way. Now, see, this is why we pass this stuff out and talk about this is what you do, and let's practice doing it so you can learn something about it. Would it be better for me to let you take this home and think about it and bring some ideas to class tomorrow rather than have you think about the ideas here on the spur of the moment? Would you rather have some time to think about it, or do you like just doing spur of the moment stuff? You don't care? Which would you rather do? Take it home and think about it, or spur of the moment?
Either is fine.
Either's fine?
Spur of the moment goes faster.
Then you don't have then you don't have one more thing put on your plate to take home when you leave class. So what's your pleasure, people? Do it right now?
Sure.
So, give me a suggestion of what he can do to get local Christians more involved with interacting with teens in the community. Let's see. Let's just start writing some stuff down here.
Plan some sort of events, like.
Say that again, Esther.
Plan some sort of events, like, especially around like holidays or typical celebration things. We could do like a big event of some sort.
Plan some holiday events.
That would be mostly geared around just inviting people and having fun, but then would also like.
Holiday events where you invite people. You invite local teens to come to some holiday event. So, whatever the Albanian and Hungarian holidays are, you find out what those holidays are, and you go on these holidays. Around these holidays, we're going to invite local teens to come to some kind of activity that we're doing, either in your house or at somebody else's house or somewhere. You like that idea, Daniel? You have one, Todd? What? Well, while you're thinking, I've got one, Daniel. Have all the adults, have all the Christians give you a list of teens that live in their community.
Just go to schools.
I don't know if that's legal or not.
What? Oh, you mean to go to the school and get it?
No, the list.
You mean the Christians can't tell you who lives in their neighborhood?
They couldn't give addresses at least.
They what?
They couldn't give addresses.
Oh, they couldn't?
No, I believe that would be illegal. Yeah. At least I think Hungary is.
So
So you could go to schools and hand out flyers or something like that, and invite teens.
whoa, it's illegal for me to tell you where the teenagers in my community live?
I don't know about America, but
I mean, but I'm
America's
saying,
different.
in Hungary, what kind of country is that anyway?
like-
My goodness.
child protection, like you can't give out information about minors.
How interesting. How interesting. So, Esther says, well, that's not going to work. Esther says, flyers, pass out flyers. Can you pass out flyers at school?
Depends where you go. You could go to like the Catholic schools and want to know the truth, kid.
What would be wrong with going to the Catholic school if they'd pass out the flyer?
It'd just be kind of weird, but yeah, you could still do that.
Maybe some of those people at the Catholic school would love to have you have a Christian influence in their kids' lives. They go, nope, only if you're Catholic. They might not even care. They might be liberal Catholics, or they might even be a born-again Catholic who's kind of a secret believer in the Catholic Church, who'd be glad to have you taking the gospel to the kids in their school. I mean, sometimes the parish priest will say, don't have anything to do with those Protestants. And we hear a lot of stories about those guys, but we don't hear very many stories about the ones who say, they're okay, they won't hurt you. It's okay to go to their Bible study. So, you maybe could go to the Catholic school and pass out some flyers about some things that are going on. Any other suggestions?
I think you can make the video for advertising. So you can make the video and
Yeah.
go to the church and
A video that you give to the kids, or?
no, it's like for advertising.
Oh, video
yeah,
advertising.
Yeah.
Okay. Do those kids in Albania and Hungary, do they use the internet as much as they do as much? Oh, so you can put, so I can't tell you where the kids live, but you can put stuff on the internet that tells them what's going on, this holiday event we're having at this place, and all the teenagers in town are welcome to come here. You can invite them with some kind of advertisement like that. Can you just walk around the street and find teenagers, and you see a teenager and you give them something? I mean, you could give them a flyer, but I mean, who wants to just take a flyer? I mean, at Halloween time at our house, we had our children, we thought it'd be cool for our children to pass out tracts to all the kids who come trick-or-treating. So when they knock on the door and say trick or treat, our daughters would give them a tract, a gospel tract. Isn't that cool? If you were trick or treating, would that really make you happy to get a gospel tract? What if the gospel tract was inside a bag of candy?
Be okay.
So how did we package the gospel tracts? Inside little bags of candy. Have you ever come out of Walmart in the middle of summer, hot and thirsty, and had someone stand there giving away free bottles of ice cold water? And what was wrapped around the bottle? A little message from such and such a church that's just here giving people a cool drink of water on a hot day.
From Ivy. Got a message.
Got a message? But can you see where it's like, yeah, so you could give the kids something that would have a message in it that you want them to know. So, see, it's just like we're gathering ideas for the future. What are some things we can do? You know, one time I said to a couple, remember I told you about that church couldn't have Bible school, so we did 5-day clubs. And I said to one of the families, I said, you know, you live in a strategic location. You're the only person who goes to our church who lives in that quadrant of the city where our church is located. Could we have a good news club in your backyard? And here's what the guy said. He said, well, you're welcome too, but he said, there's no kids in our neighborhood. And I said, well, there must be some kids. He said, yeah, but he said, most of them are Catholic.
That doesn't change anything.
And I said, well, let's have a Bible club just to see what happens. He goes, okay, but don't be surprised if nobody shows up. We went to his backyard. First, the teenagers in church went up and down the streets within walking distance of his house, passing out flyers, telling about the backyard Bible club and how we would have, Bible stories. But yeah, what else did it say we would have? Ice cream and pop and candy bars. I have to do a little preview. Okay, so anyway, I'll finish this story and I'll tell you another one.
Mm-hmm.
So then we passed out the flyers. So we go to his house. 20 kids show up the first day. And his wife calls him at work and says, you won't believe it. There are 20 kids in our backyard listening to the gospel story. And he drove home to see. He said, where did they come from? I said, when you offer ice cream, pop, and candy bars, kids will come from anywhere and everywhere.
That's all you need.
And one time, and the reason I say that is our daughter decided to have a good news club in her neighborhood, and she passed out flyers, and she was a little girl when we did our good news clubs. So now she's grown and married and has a family, and so she's doing this backyard club. And she said, Dad, nobody came. And I said, well, what kind of flyer did you pass out? And she passed out the flyer about, the songs and all this stuff. I said, oh, girl, your neighbor kids need to know that there's going to be some pop and candy bars. And she goes, well, and she was a newlywed. She goes, well, I don't know if I have that kind of money to buy pop and candy bars. I said, put together another flyer and tell them that there's going to be cold pop and candy bars. And I'll bring enough for 20 or 25 kids. And I went over to her house with an ice chest full of cold pop and a whole bunch of candy bars, and what do you think happened? Kids are showing up like crazy. Now, they came the first day for the pop and the candy bars, right? Okay, what happens? What brings them back for the second day?
Missionary story.
What?
Missionary story.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. They want to hear the rest of what happened with that missionary story. Or they want to learn the next book page in the wordless book. I mean, it's just, now, they're glad to have those snacks the next time around, but that's what gets them there. And if they only come the second day for the pop and the candy bar, that's okay, because we've got them coming back to listening to the truth. So I'm saying, just say, hey, make it worthwhile for somebody to do that. So we gather ideas, then we sort out the ideas, and my idea was a bad one, as usual. I suggested that he get the people who live there to give you the names and addresses of all the teens, and come to find out he gets arrested when he goes to Hungary and does that, because that's illegal. So he goes to jail, and the Christian family goes to jail, and thanks to me, I've spoiled the whole operation in Europe. Man, it's a good thing he knows something about the country before he gets there. So sort out the ideas. Say, some of them aren't going to work. And in step 5, give some feedback. Here's why that won't work. Here's what we could do. In fact, it might not hurt to ask those Christian families for some ideas on what we could do to reach the teenagers in your community. And it might be that we just need to go out on the front porch. Okay, it's illegal in Greece for Protestants to proselytize Catholics. But guess what happens if a Protestant sits out on the front porch of their house reading their Bible when they eat breakfast every morning? And the neighbors walk by and go, Kalimera, and you go, Kalimera. And then you invite them in for some cucumbers and tomatoes and some slice of bread? Want to eat some breakfast with me? Oh, thank you very much. They come on in, and while they're eating something, you're reading the Bible. They say, what are you reading? I said, I read the Bible every morning. It helps me get through the day. All of a sudden, you start leading your neighbors to Christ. And the priest comes over and says, what you're doing is illegal. You say, I didn't do anything illegal. I simply sat on my front porch eating breakfast, reading my Bible, and inviting my neighbors to share my breakfast. Nothing illegal about that. If she would have gone to their house and knocked on the door and said, I want to share the gospel with you, that will get you put in jail. So, you could have the Christian families think of things we could do out in our front yard that would encourage the kids to stop and see what's going on. Ask for goals. What's our goal here? What are we really trying to do, Daniel, over here in Hungary and Albania? What's our, my goal with this plan is to get more teens to the youth group and get more mature Christians involved. So, you see, that's his goal. Now, do you see where when you share that goal with the Christian families, how do I get, I guess what you'd say to them is, how do we get the teens in your neighborhood to come to some of our youth group activities? And if the church sent a flyer out, those teens probably wouldn't come. But if the neighbor saw the teen on the street and said, hey, I'm going to an activity at church where there's going to be a bunch of young people, do you want to go along with me? Can you do that, or is that illegal too?
Should be, as long as you're not taking their information.
Okay, you can offer them a ride to go down there. So just say you could offer rides to the kids to come to the youth group.
It'd be a little different, but depends what city you're in.
Okay.
Because not really.
And then
Streets and houses
step
and
7
places,
says arrange your goals by purposes. Look to see if your goals connect, if what we're trying to do connects to our purposes. And then step 8, hold a planning retreat. Oh, that's what we're having. A planning retreat. That's what we're doing here. A planning retreat. No wonder we have all these snacks. When the other students say, how come you guys have so many snacks? You say, in your class, you say, it's not a class. It's a planning retreat. We're having a planning
I
retreat.
feel like we should be in the mountains
I
and have like
agree.
really comfy chairs. And
We're having a planning retreat. Step 9, resolve conflicts. Have we had any conflicts in here?
well, Daniel got fired a little bit ago, so.
I got fired. You guys ruled out ice cream for the snacks.
Oh, we have had some conflicts. And how do we resolve conflicts?
Yeah.
I think we're going to have a handout on that. If not this time. So, somewhere, don't they offer a course here at Calvary on conflict resolution? Why would they offer a course on conflict resolution?
Because people have conflicts.
Yes, they do, and they need help resolving them. And here we are, a small little group of people, and we all like each other, and we've already had some conflicts. And let's see, what was one of the conflicts we had? What did Daniel just mention as a conflict? Conflict.
Ice cream not being over there.
Ice cream. Ice cream was what? Rejected. My ice cream suggestion was rejected.
You took it personally.
What, Esther?
And you took it personally.
And there you go. Ice cream was rejected, parentheses, and Daniel took it personally.
Take these things very personally.
Now, look, did anyone know it was Daniel's suggestion when it was up there?
Yeah.
I mean,
Probably.
kind of
You did?
reacted to it. He would put this.
Oh, okay, okay. But did you know it was Daniel's suggestion before he took it to the heart?
No.
So what we've discovered about our little organization is that one of our staff members has a very tender heart.
Oh.
Or you could say it another way, he's a little bit touchy. Or you could say it another way, he's
I'm over dramatic.
he's easily offended. Or he's overly dramatic. I mean, there's all kinds of ways. But you know what? You know what? See, this is what's good about having some. Okay, Daniel, this is why you're in this class. So for people who aren't that sensitive, to become aware of every group's going to have people who need to be treated with tenderness because they have a tender heart. And that's just what you do if you're going to work with everybody in your group. Unless you're going to say, it's just going to be us and of us hard-hearted people, and all the soft people can go someplace else and work. It's like, no, we've got a place for everybody. Which means we're going to resolve conflict. And by the way, if you can't learn to resolve conflict while you're in college with different people, how in the world do you think you're going to resolve conflict when you, what's your next unit? Have a family unit? And if you think having conflicts with some guys happens quite frequently, wait till you get half of the organization as a woman. The occasions for conflict increase exponentially, don't they? I mean, girls have conflicts, but you put guys in the mix, it changes that whole dynamic.
Does it?
I don't know if I have experience with that, but.
Oh, you haven't? Well, you will. You will. I'm telling
That
you.
is perfect.
Of course.
It's just. Do you have sisters?
Yes.
Do you have brothers?
Yes.
So do you have more conflicts with the sisters or the brothers?
Depends on the age. Because when I was younger, it was with my sister, but now that I'm older, it's with my brother.
Those brothers, they are a mess, aren't they? I'm just saying that, you know, it's the. Do you guys serve on any committees anywhere where there's girls on the committee? Are any of you class officers where some of the officers are women? Well, somewhere we got to mix this up so you start getting some practice resolving conflicts. But it just says we have to learn, and we'll have a handout on it a little later, but we have to learn how to resolve conflicts and how to deal with conflict resolution. And the biggest thing is, how do you resolve conflicts? Oh, easy. We'll just decide to do everything my way. That doesn't resolve the conflict. The resolution of a conflict is where both sides, what? Give a little bit? And the end result is resolution. Daniel didn't get his ice cream. But when he came in today with his stash of cookies, what did he discover? What was there on the table?
That you stole my idea?
No, I didn't steal your idea. No, I didn't steal your idea, Daniel. I thought you were going to bring regular cookies, so I thought he'll be happy to have some mint cookies to go along with them.
You both brought those?
Yeah.
I thought you just brought them both.
Really?
Oh no.
Great.
And my good intentions created another conflict. Because I stole his idea. And I thought I was just supplementing it because I was sure he would bring regular ones, not mint ones. So now we have twice as many mint cookies. And I was trying to be helpful and cause another conflict. That's the way it goes in life. That's the way it goes. So I guess I better plan to stop on the way home. And what can I do to resolve this conflict?
Ice cream.
Some ice cream.
Yes.
Man, I'm telling you, you're a hard man. Bring some ice cream. Bring some ice cream. Bring some ice cream. Any particular kind?
That's up to you.
Any particular kind?
What's your favorite kind of ice cream?
What?
What's your favorite kind of ice cream?
I don't eat ice cream.
What? You told us stories in human growth and development about how you had a bowl of ice cream every night before you went to bed.
That was when I was younger and not as old and decrepit as I am now. Well, actually, I quit eating ice cream when Bluebell quit selling ice cream in Kansas City. Have you ever had Bluebell ice cream? It's what they serve in the cafeteria, isn't it?
No.
It's in Texas, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you've had Bluebell ice cream.
It's no different than any other ice cream.
What?
It's no different than any other ice cream.
I beg your pardon. we have another conflict now. This time it's on him. Bluebell ice cream is so superior to every other ice cream in the world that when they quit selling Bluebell ice cream in Kansas City because of some kind of listeria thing or something, a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, that I said, that's it, I don't buy ice cream anymore in Kansas City. None of it's as good as Bluebell. Plus it's not healthy anyway. So you don't have a favorite flavor?
I like caramel or chocolate.
Chocolate?
Or caramel.
Chocolate or
Both.
caramel? Chocolate or caramel? Okay. All right. Well, we'll see what we can do about this.
We'll have to eat ice cream at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's to be so good.
You know what? I'm going to bring it in a container and just let it sit on the table and just melt.
Lobster ice cream.
I told you people that it wasn't personal. It was that ice cream will melt. But to resolve the conflict, I'm going to bring it in here and I'm going to put it in a pan where it can just ooze all over the place. And you can drink it with a straw if you want to. You can do whatever you want with that ice cream. And I don't even care if we just throw it out when it's all said and done with. I'm at least going to do my part to resolve the conflict over ice cream. Okay, but do you understand the principle of saying, if we're going to take the initiative to resolve a conflict, we're the ones that are going to do something to try to fix the situation. That's it. if there's a conflict, it's just like, see, okay, just like I'm going on about this ice cream thing because it's such a dumb idea. But see, it's just like, but because of my feelings about ice cream, I've offended somebody. I will go the extra mile to resolve the conflict. And then after I resolve it, I turn around and unresolve it by saying it's a dumb idea. You know, it's just not being sensitive to the guy with a tender heart. It's just, but this is what you do to resolve conflicts. You go the extra mile. I mean, just look at the course description. Look at the syllabus for the conflict resolution class and see what goes on there. And the bottom line key to conflict resolution. Okay, this is my bottom line key to conflict resolution. Esther and I have a conflict, and we can't resolve it. Yeah, we can. We'll do it Esther's way. We'll do what Esther wants.
Okay.
That's how I'll resolve the conflict. Daniel and I have a conflict. Okay, how are we going to resolve it? We can't resolve it. Yes, we can. I'll do what makes Daniel happy. You follow me? Talk and I have a conflict. How do I resolve the conflict? I find out what makes Talk happy, and that's the way we do it. One time, I had a boss who said to me, Tom, you know what your problem is? And I said, what? He said, you always have to have your own way. That's what he said. I said, I don't always have to have my own way. I thought that when we had a difference of opinion in a meeting and discussed it, if my way was the better way, we could discuss it long enough, debate the issue, and my opinion would prevail. He said, well, he said, you're better at argumentation than most people are. So here's what my boss said to me. You can always win the argument, so you'll end up getting your way. Now he could say, Tom, you're just better at argument than I am. But instead of saying that, he said, you always have to have your own way. And there's only one way to resolve that conflict. And I said, well, guess what? We're not going to discuss this issue anymore because I just decided we're going to do it your way. He said, yeah, but he said, you don't agree with my way. I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether I agree with it or not. We're going to do it your way because that's the way you want it done. And you need to know that I don't always have to have my own way. He said, yeah, but if you don't really think it's the best way, you won't give it your best effort. I said, yes, I will. You watch and see. So I took his way of doing it, and I made sure that it worked out right, because what was more important than this thing we were doing was him knowing that I don't have to always have my own way. You understand? I had to have that kind of working relationship. So the way you resolve conflict is you just give in to the other person's argument or way of doing it. Well, I'm sorry, but that sounds to me like you're just turning yourself into a little doormat the whole world can walk all over. Well, guess what? The reason I'm not the world's doormat is because my Heavenly Father doesn't let people do that to me. You understand what I'm talking about? I serve a God who's big enough to intervene so people don't take advantage of me. But unity and harmony and oneness in the body of Christ is so important from God's perspective, when I look at the Bible, that my solution to resolving conflict is, if our discussion turns into a conflict, I'll just do it your way. I mean, if we're driving somewhere and I'm going to go route A to get there, you know, MapQuest has 2 or 3 ways to get someplace, and you say, I think it would be better to go route B. And I say, well, route B is going to take more time and it's longer and it's has more stoplights on it. Yeah, but I still think route B is the way to go. Then guess what I'm going to say? If it's turning into a conflict, then guess what? We're going route B. And I'm not going to complain about the time, and I'm not going to complain about the stoplights. I'm not going to complain about the traffic. I'm just going to drive on down the road. And when she says to me, when we hit the traffic and the stoplights and we're a little bit late getting there, she says, I guess we should have gone route A, shouldn't we? I would say, well, now I can either get in her face and say, I told you so, or I can be kind and gentle and sensitive and say, hey, you live and learn. That's what life's all about. Right? And we live in a world where I think the reason we have a class here on conflict resolution is because we live in a world where everybody wants to arm wrestle over everything. People just want to argue about stuff, sometimes just for the sake of argument. But I think probably most of the time, it's just pure selfishness. I mean, would it be fair to say we live in a selfish society? And are you ready for this? Selfish people have a lot of conflicts with other selfish people. What?
Mind blown.
Isn't that true though? And watch, well, if they're being selfish, that's wrong. They should have a servant's heart. I said, yes, they should. Well, and watch this. I actually had a person say this to me one time. An older Christian said this to me. When he said, Tom, he said, Brother Tom, he said, God wants us to keep each other humble. I said, get your concordance out and look up the word humble and see what it says about humbleness. And it tells me to humble myself before God, right? And it also tells me that God will humble me if I need it. But I don't find any verse that tells me to humble you. But I see lots of verses that tell me to love you, to support you, to care for you, to be sensitive to you. And I've concluded that for some reason in the body of Christ today, we're not willing to let God do what He says He'll do in people's lives. We feel compelled to step in and help Him. I'm going to help you be more humble. I'm going to help you be more obedient. You follow me? And I'm thinking, no, I'm going to let God do that work in your life. I'm going to do the things that God tells me to do in relating to one another. And I don't see one of those others as being, I'm supposed to humble you before God. That's your relationship to God. To humble yourself and for Him to humble you if you need it, but not for me to do that. And I really concluded that the biggest factor in conflict is selfishness. Just selfishness. I want my way. And of course, you know why I want my way, don't you? Because my way is always fill in the blank.
Right.
Right. It's always the best way to do things. It's always better than any other way. And it's like, not necessarily. I beg your pardon. I've thought this stuff through. I've evaluated all the options. I've prayed about it. You understand? I. It's like, in fact, I said this one time to a friend of mine. Because remember, we just went through this statement earlier in class today about how you have to let people go if it's detrimental to the organization. Okay, I said this to a friend of mine. Do you ever think God lets an organization suffer because he's trying to teach a person in the organization something? He's trying to do something. In other words, do you think God ever lets an organization suffer because he's trying to teach the leader of that organization something? Or would God say the organization is more important than this individual? Or would he say, I'm going to let this organization suffer so that I can teach this person something in his personal life? What do you think? I think God is so concerned about individuals that sometimes he'll let organizations suffer for the sake of teaching that person something. And if that's the case, then if God's trying to deal in somebody's life in my church, and I'm thinking, we can't let this person mess our church up and create a conflict, I have to say, maybe I just need to love them and pray for them and care for them and support. Maybe I need to do all the things God wants me to do in relationship to them, even if they don't deserve it, and let God do his work in their life and leave the organization in God's hands. And maybe God will decide to shut the door on our organization. So, he was doing a work before this organization started. He'll be doing a work after this organization is gone. I mean, what? We've already talked about Boys Brigade and Pioneer Girls. Now, Pioneer Girls is still around. It's just not called Pioneer Girls anymore. It's called Pioneer Clubs. So they could include both boys and girls like Awana does. But Awana is pretty well dominated. But do you have any idea where Boys Brigade and Pioneer Girls came from? What is that? What does Boys Brigade and Pioneer Girls sound like with something that you've heard in the past in America? Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Why would churches start programs that were similar to Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts? Why not just join Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts?
Because they don't really make you memorize verses.
Because they don't. Yeah, see? Now Daniel, he's figured me out. You know, if you can't make them memorize verses, I don't want to support this program. I want those people memorizing verses. I want God's word in their hearts. But see, that's right. Now, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts used to have a whole bunch of Christian influence. When they move away from it, then somebody starts a new program. And when organizations, does anyone know about the Christian Foundation, the Christian Beginnings for Harvard University?
It was a seminary, wasn't it, to begin?
Yes. They started Harvard because they didn't want to import they didn't want the ministers in America to have to go to England to be schooled in how to lead the body of Christ. So they started Harvard so we could train our own ministers for the churches in America. So why did Yale get started? Because Harvard started going liberal in somebody's mind, and somebody has to hold the line. Isn't that interesting? That somebody comes along, it's just like, we're just here living in a world that's going to undergo change. And all I have to do to resolve a conflict is just deny myself. Just simply refuse to be selfish, or to put it in a positive spin, to do it the other person's way. No matter what. There you go. That settles it. My wife says, Tom, when you buy a whole turkey, cooking a whole turkey and pulling all the meat off there is a lot of work. Why don't you just buy turkey breast? Then I just put the turkey breast in the oven and cook it. We all prefer white meat anyway. Now, do we all prefer white meat anyway? No. Well, let's not argue about it. But I can buy the whole turkey for what? $1.39 a pound? And the turkey breast is going to cost $5 a pound. So now it's about money, is it, Tom? Resolve the conflict. Just buy her 2 turkey breasts and be done with it. And resolve the conflict. And then maybe when everybody's eating turkey and they go, wow, this is pretty good turkey. Where's the dark meat? Oh, well, we didn't cook a whole turkey. We only took the turkey breast. Oh, okay, well, yeah, that makes it easier, doesn't it? I sure wish we had some dark meat. Don't be surprised if next year your wife says what? Why don't we cook a whole turkey? And I say, if that's what you want, that's what we'll do. I mean, to me, that's the key to resolving conflict. Just do it the other person's way. Okay, step 10, assign responsibilities. So who's going to do what? Did I assign responsibilities for snacks? No, I didn't. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. A goal only becomes operational under this step 10, assign responsibility. It only becomes operational workable when there are goal owners available. The important thing is that there's a name attached and a feeling of ownership for every goal. So, now, I know I'm being technical here, but did I tell Daniel to bring Oreos? Did I tell Esther to bring goldfish? Did I tell Toc to bring popcorn? I did not assign responsibilities. That's a technicality. Yes, it is. But you see the difference between telling you what to bring and letting you take ownership of one of the snacks by your own initiative? Or maybe we should ask, was it your own initiative? In other words, we're at step 10, talking about assigning responsibilities, and I just said that I did not assign responsibilities, and Daniel and Esther said, yes, you did. And I said, no, I didn't, because I didn't tell you to bring popcorn, and Daniel to bring Oreos, and Esther to bring goldfish. All I said was, we have, oh, look at this. We have 4 snacks, and there are 4 people in the room. And then, did I say next? So I'll bring fruit snacks. And then what happened after that? Does anyone remember what happened after that?
I volunteered to bring goldfish.
What?
I volunteered to bring goldfish.
Did I ask you to bring goldfish? Did I ask you to bring something?
Indirectly, kind of?
I hinted at it, but I didn't ask it. But then you volunteered to bring goldfish. And what happened after she volunteered to bring goldfish? Anyone remember what happened next? Did I make assignments? What happened next? After she volunteered to bring goldfish, what did you 2 guys do? What was going on? Do you remember what went on in your head when she said, I'll bring goldfish? Did you say, I guess I better volunteer to bring something? I mean, what went on down in your heart of hearts? Did you say, whoops, it looks like he's got 4 things and 4 people, he's expecting all of us to pick one? But you see, even expecting people to pick one, I still didn't assign the responsibility. Did all of you voluntarily? Okay, Esther just says, say that again, how you said it, Esther? I volunteered to bring goldfish. Then what did you do, Daniel?
Said I would bring Oreos.
You said you would bring Oreos.
Mhm.
And what did you say, Todd?
I bring popcorn.
Now, why did you say you'd bring popcorn?
Because I was the only one.
That hadn't picked something, and there's one thing left, so you felt compelled to pick something? Esther, did you mean to put pressure on Talk when you said you would bring goldfish?
Esther. Conflict.
Okay, now when I said I'll bring fruit snacks, did I mean to put pressure on anybody else to choose something?
Yes.
Now, see, Daniel, when Esther made a choice, she wasn't trying to put pressure on anybody. When I made a choice, I was putting pressure on people. Can you tell me why her choice and my choice were that different?
Well, you're the leader of this class, the dude in the top box, and you had an agenda, so you were just gonna.
And I was using
You're manipulating our minds.
I was messing
Very
with you.
manipulative.
I was messing with you people, and all she wasn't trying to mess with anybody. She was just being nice about it. And Talk, he got manipulated. What about you, Daniel? You got manipulated too?
Yep.
Esther, am I a powerful manipulator or what?
I guess so.
This study in psychology and human growth really pays off, doesn't it? You know how to mess with people. Now see, what would have happened if nobody would have volunteered to bring anything?
We wouldn't have had snacks.
What?
We wouldn't have had snacks.
We don't know that for sure. That's a possibility. I would have gone for sure and brought fruit snacks. And you know what? I'm thinking because Daniel was passing out that trail mix, I would have bought the nuts. Because I thought, well, I volunteered to bring fruit snacks, but since Daniel's trail mix was so popular, maybe those nuts would be popular too. Now, I don't know how it would. It could be that I would have said, you know what? If these turkeys don't want to volunteer to bring something and all they get is fruit snacks. I mean, you understand? I don't know what would have happened in my heart of hearts if it would have gone the other way. I do know this, that there have been times in life when people have not been willing to participate and I've let them suffer the consequences, and other times when I've decided, no, I think I'll just go ahead and make up for it. So it varies from time to time on how you handle stuff. But, okay, I'll just be the first to tell you, I'm a little hesitant to assign responsibilities. But 2 of you just said what I did was assigning responsibility. So it could be it's just a matter of words.
Interpretation.
Yeah, because I say, no, I let people choose. You said, no, you didn't. You put pressure on us to do it. I'm going, oh, I did? Then I say, well, I'm sorry I put that pressure on you. You said, no, I'm not. I'm not sorry that I pressured you to do a good thing. Okay, step 11 says complete the planning process. So what that means is that now we've got responsibilities, people taking ownership of responsibilities, and now they finish it off. We complete the plan. And here, all of a sudden, a bunch of snacks show up today. And sure enough, Logan, just so you know, there's popcorn over there. Thank you, Top. There are Oreos over there. Thank you, Daniel. And there are goldfish over there. And thank you, Esther. And if you could tell my tone of voice that my thank you to Talk and Daniel was a little more meaningful than my thank you to Esther. Did you pick up on that intonation change a little bit? You did, didn't you, Esther? Because I like popcorn and I like Oreos, but goldfish just don't ring a bell with me. So I thank you for bringing it. It just isn't something that I would ever want to eat under any circumstance. But see, that's just me. And see, now you guys didn't pick up on that, but Esther did. But I didn't mean to convey that. I honestly didn't. I mean, I didn't deliberately try to diminish my thank you to you. It just happens because of who I am as a person, and I don't care for goldfish. I mean, I don't like rice. You go, what? You eat it all the time. Yeah, but I don't like it. Why not? Because I grew up with mashed potatoes and gravy. Have you ever had mashed potatoes and gravy? Okay, put a bowl of rice on the table and a bowl of mashed potatoes and gravy. And take a spoon and taste the rice and then taste the mashed potatoes and gravy. A, B. What's the conclusion? B is delicious and A is nutritious. A is nutritious and B is delicious. Parentheses, not good for me. That's how you know that stuff isn't good for you.
It tastes good.
If it tastes good, you know what the driving force is for eating for old people who are trying to eat healthy? If it tastes good, spit it out. If it tastes like cardboard, you know it's healthy.
Yep.
I just grew up eating potatoes and gravy and fried. It's okay. Mashed potatoes good. How about fried potatoes?
Like French fries?
Okay, they're even better than French fries.
How does that work?
It's not like French fries though.
Well, it's just you take potatoes and cut them in. Okay, you take the potato and those little slicers where you slice them thin, and you slice them thin and put them in a skillet and fry them. So it's like it's halfway between a French fry and a potato chip.
Never heard of it.
Making my mouth water just sitting here talking about it. And see, now, if you took a spoon of rice and then a spoon of mashed potatoes and gravy, what would you say? Delicious for the rice and disgusting for the potatoes and gravy?
No.
You like the potatoes and gravy?
Mm-hmm.
Do your family back in Japan know that?
Oh, I don't know, maybe not.
Well, when you get back home, you better not tell them that potatoes and gravy taste better than rice. You'll be in trouble. And my daughter, who lived in Russia for 10 years, she just loves rice. How can you put love and rice in the same? Don't understand it.
I think rice is like bread here, so it's not like main thing, you know. So
Yeah. And when I can, so here's a bowl of rice and here's a loaf of bread. This is not a choice, people. My mouth is watering for the bread, and the rice is waiting to be consumed because it's healthy. So you say, but you like Chinese food? Yes, I do. But Chinese food has a lot of rice in it. Your Chinese food has a lot of rice in it. My Chinese food is all Chinese food with just a little tiny bit of rice as a sprinkling on top. Just so I can say I'm eating Chinese. You eat a whole bunch of rice with a little bit of food. I eat a whole bunch of food with a little bit of rice. Okay, so anyway, so everybody follows through on the planning. And then they set schedules for when they're going to have their planning done. And if you're the supervisor, you come around asking, so how's your plan going? How's your plan going? Are we on schedule? Are we going to meet the deadlines? And then somebody says, well, it looks like we're going to need whatever to make this thing happen. That's providing resources. Once you say is that we're getting close to the deadline and we need this and this and this to make it happen, then you need to provide the resources. And if we don't have the resources, then we can't do it. What happened one time? One time in this class, we had a big room full of people, and they actually voted to have a class breakfast.
Nice.
And I said, what do you want to have for breakfast? And they did the same thing on the board. And I said, who's going to bring all this stuff? And one guy volunteered to bring pancakes, and another one volunteered to fry eggs. And whoa! And so then we had about a dozen people in the room, and about 4 people bringing all the stuff for breakfast for a dozen people. And my next question was, who's going to pay for all this? And let's see, you have a dozen people, that's going to take what, 2 dozen eggs? If each person eats 2 eggs? How much bacon? You follow me? How many pancakes and syrup and all that kind of stuff, and juice and coffee? And we started figuring out how much it was going to take and what it was all going to cost. And guess what? The class, I said, so we got all the information out there, and I said, does anyone have a motion? Anyone want to make a motion? You know, this making decisions somebody said, I move that we take the total cost and divide it by 12, and that we each pay so much money for the breakfast. And what did I say after they made that motion? Parliamentary procedure.
I second.
Is there a second to the motion? And someone said, I second that motion. And then what did I say next? Parliamentary procedure. Any discussion of the motion? And they talked about it. And some people talked about paying that much money that I'm already paying for breakfast in the cafeteria and paying for breakfast in the cafeteria in here too. And others said, well, I don't eat in the cafeteria, so it's no thing for me, and we discussed it back and forth and finally decided that, yeah, everybody would pay, eat breakfast here, and if you didn't want to eat, you paid anyway. That bothered some people, didn't it? But see, guess what we said? Now, see, here's a class with a dozen people in it. Majority rules. And if the vote was 10-2, then we all pay our money. And if one of those 2 people would have come to me in tears or in anger, said, you know, it didn't say in the syllabus that you have to pay $2 for a breakfast. I just think it's wrong to make me pay $2 when I eat in the cafeteria. Any idea what I would do? Resolving conflict?
Just pay for it.
I would reach in my pocket and say, here's the $2, go pay your $2 and be done with it. Resolve the conflict. Because that's my approach to resolving conflict. Now, what I would like to say is, so don't you eat, but even though they ate in the cafeteria, once the food was served in the room, did they get in line and eat like everybody else did? Yeah. That's like, no, this is not, because that was a conflict area, this is not the place to deal with it or resolve it. Okay, so we provide the resources, we go into action, and it looks like everybody did. What did you have to do to get the goldfish?
Go to Walmart.
Went to Walmart. Went to Walmart? Okay, so now Daniel and I, even though we've had a few conflicts in here from day one, first right off the bat, just because I took his motion and modified it a little bit, that Daniel and I find, have this thing in common. We think alike. Now I know why we both bought mint, I think I do. The reason I bought the mint chocolate chip, the mint Oreos, is because the package has 2 more ounces of Oreos for the same price as the others. Is that why you bought them?
No.
So it was a better deal. You bought them because you like those better?
Yeah.
So do you guys like mint Oreos better than the other kind? Or do you like the other kind better?
I probably like the other kind better.
What about you, Tom?
Yeah, me too.
You like the other kind better? It looks like I better.
Let's go into that conflict.
Along
step.
with regular Oreos. Have you guys eaten any mint Oreos?
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's a while ago. Yeah.
Just to see what they're like?
Uh-huh.
And you still like the others better?
Yeah.
All right. Daniel? How
I
could
don't
we
know about
know?
these two.
How could we know? How could you know that your favorite would be offensive to 2 people in the room?
I did not know.
Does that bother you that that's not their favorite?
No.
And see, it doesn't bother me that you bought it because it's your favorite, because it's my granddaughter's favorite too. She loves those mint Oreos. And I thought, well, she was a college student once, maybe you guys would like them. Okay, you go into action, yep. And you went to Walmart and talk, what did you do to get the popcorn?
Walmart.
Walmart? It's funny, none of us saw each other there, did we? We all just zipped in there, got our stuff, and we were gone. Step 15, review and evaluate regularly. So that means you're always reviewing and evaluating. How are we doing? And remember, this is that growth cycle, that circle we showed. So are we working our way around there? Are we making progress? Are we growing? And then step 16 says, repeat the process every year. Now, be careful that you don't think that just means we have one big circle that we go around all year, because really here's what's going on. We do have kind of a big circle that we're going around every year, but it's kind of like the solar system. Here's all the planets going around, so there's a whole bunch of things going on a yearly basis, but around each planet there are little moons. So you could take the big circle and say, here's a bunch of little things, little cycles all around the circle that are going on all the time. Like in terms of youth ministry, this small group thing that we talked about for Logan's plan, that, can you see where we'll put that in place, we'll get it going. A month from now, we'll look to see how it's working. And it could be in a month, we'll drop the requirement to memorize a little verse. Or it could be in a month, we'll decide to let the groups get larger than 5. So a month from now, we'll evaluate, and then probably in another month, since he talked about doing things a month at a time, in another month we'll evaluate again. So it could be, for that one activity, we'll go through that cycle 12 times in a year, but you think in terms of the big picture is every year we work all the way around it and say, how are we doing in all of these areas of ministry? But in each area of ministry, we're kind of going around a circle on a monthly basis or even a weekly basis or even sometimes a daily basis to see how things are going. But probably in church work, it's going to be weekly, how it goes from one week to the next. Just because things occur on a weekly basis. A Sunday school teacher says, the boys are so disruptive in my Sunday school class. And I'm going, what are they doing? And okay, here's what happened in her Sunday school class. She had these junior high kids sitting at tables like this, but the tables were pushed together, and there was another table here and another table there. So there were 2, 4, 6, 8 of us sitting at the table discussing things. And you know what these little boys were doing? Any idea what junior high boys will do if you put them around the table where the tables are pushed right up next to each other? They kick each other under the table. They start just fooling around. And it just drove this teacher nuts. That's what little boys do. What is it Daniel said about little boys early on in his class? They're just stupid. Didn't you say that?
Basically, we're all boys, but
Yeah, that's just it. And that's what I said to her. She said, why do they do that? I said, they're just stupid. That's what I said. And she laughed a little bit. I said, well, it's true. I said, so let's solve your problem. And so she said, how are we going to do that? And I said, well, do you like them sitting in a kind of a circle like that? She goes, yes. I said, okay. So what you do is, and here's the solution. You pull the tables apart where they're not close enough together where they can kick each other under the table. And then if Daniel tries to reach out and kick somebody, you can see him scooching down and reaching out, and you can say, don't do that. You can call him down for it. So we just pushed so we still had the same shape, we just had a big space. And then of course, you know what the kids say when they come in, how come the tables aren't shoved next to each other? Oh, I decided to rearrange things for today. And the kid who's asking that is looking to kick somebody without anybody seeing it. So you just move the tables apart, and then so we made that adjustment, that correction, thinking about the cycle, and then afterwards we evaluated how did it work. She said it worked fine. So you see, on a week-to-week basis, you just try things, and you say what's going to work for me and what doesn't. Okay, that takes care of that handout. Do I have another one for today? Yeah, I do. One more before we start the next one. And here it is. From feeding and leading, assessing, needs, gifts, and call. What is this all about? On page 119. We've already talked about this other stuff, I think, a little bit. Effective lay leadership begins with need assessment. One of the surveys implemented by the Win Arm Church Growth Center uncovered 10 questions most often asked by church leaders. They spotlight the importance of our subject in this chapter. How can I see more members involved in sharing their Christian faith with others? How can we help our present members to be more open to newcomers and make them feel welcome? How can we involve more members in the ministry of our church? How can we train a task force in developing a successful lay ministry program? Do these questions reflect some of the problems that you've discovered in your interviews? I'm thinking that I read quite a bit of this. How do we get people involved in ministry? How do we keep people working? How do we keep people from just getting tired of working and becoming inactive? I didn't see that many comments about how we get people to reach out to the lost. At best, he says, we can respond to this vast area of need assessment by breaking it down into a broad, narrow focus for ministry, which begins with the world and ends at a specific point of service. And basically, we need to start talking about what needs to be done in our world, in our community, in our church. And probably then, if you start out in the big picture and keep working yourself down into the smaller circles, and probably in our church families would be the smallest unit that we have going on here. And since evangelism wasn't one of the areas that was talked about that much, well, okay, let's take an area that was talked about, getting people involved in doing ministry. Okay, so we've got all this stuff that needs to be done to reach the world for Christ. And we've got all this stuff that needs to be done in our community to reach the world for Christ. And we've got all this stuff that needs to be done in our church to reach the world for Christ. And then in our Sunday school classes, and then in our families. And let's see. So what do we need here? Well, we need workers to reach the world for Christ. No, let's go to the family unit. What do we need in this family? Let's see. I have 2 daughters, and I've noticed during church time that my 2 daughters want to sit in the back of the church with their teenage friends who spend the whole church service passing notes back and forth to each other and not paying attention to the sermon. Did any of you go to a church like that? Or did your church have all the teenagers sit on the front row where they could be supervised? And then they looked for ways to pass notes without getting caught.
Yep.
So you say, what does it have to do with the need for workers in the church? Okay, the sermon wasn't directed to the people on the front row or the people on the back row. The sermon's not directed to the teenagers, is it? It's directed to the adults in church. So I concluded church wasn't designed for my teenage daughters. So I went downstairs to children's church and said, do you need any help down here? What does children's church always need? Help. And I said, would you like to have my daughters come down and help you? They've been through CYIA training. No, this was before they did CYIA. They've helped in Bible school before with little kids, and I think they could be helpful. And they would say, sure, send them down. So instead of our girls arguing with us about where they sit in church, I mean, if all their friends sit together, why can't they sit with them instead of sit with us? Because your kids don't pay attention, da 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 da. I said, you know what? You girls don't have to sit in church anymore. You'll go downstairs and help with children's church. I just talked to the children's church workers, and they go, all right, Dad. So what happens is our girls, while they're teenagers, start serving in children's church. So now all of a sudden I've addressed the shortage of workers in the church by having my 2 teenage daughters help with children's church. You follow what I'm talking about doing? We solve the problem by actually doing something about addressing the shortage of workers. So now, here's a family of 4 people where on Sunday, I teach Sunday school, and my 2 daughters work in children's church. This family is definitely involved in the ministry. So why can't we get more families to do that? Well, guess what some adults said to us? How come your girls aren't in church? I said, because they're helping in children's church. Well, I think the young people should be up here listening to the sermon. And I said to this friend of mine, well, I think the sermon is not addressed to young people, it's addressed to the parents of young people. So I'll take the lessons that the pastor is teaching me, and I'll take them home and teach them to my children during the week. And then let my children have an experience teaching little kids in children's church. And our girls were so good at helping these workers that the workers actually gave them jobs to teach some of the Bible lessons, and they would sit at home and study for hours to prepare themselves to be children's church lesson teachers. And the children's church people loved it because they weren't doing all the work themselves. They weren't just there to help supervise kids, they were there helping with the work. And what did that do to our daughters? It got them involved as teenagers. So what did they just assume that you do when you grow up? You get involved in church as a worker. Some of the other parents criticized us for it. Some parents said, that's a good idea. I think I'll have my kids work in children's church. Especially the ones that were a little rowdy. Any idea what the children's church people said about having rowdy boys help in children's church? We don't need one more child down here to supervise. And since I was in charge of the ministries, the ed ministry of the church, I would have to go to the parents and say, sorry, but your son isn't helpful. He's just increasing their workload, so he can't help down there anymore. And the parents were a little offended, but they understood. So basically, what you need to do is say, I just need to assess what needs to be done here. And then you just start plugging people in to meet those needs. And I think we make a mistake by not letting teenagers and even preteens help with ministry. How young were you when you first started doing your first ministry to other people in or through church or a parachurch organization?
7th grade.
What grade?
7th.
7th grade? Which was what? 12, 13 years old? So why don't we have a program that starts getting 12-year-olds involved in ministry? Now, you say we don't need that many workers in children's church. Okay, are there other ministries we can get them involved in? Let's see. Could we have all of the 12 or 13-year-olds in our church become, okay, it used to be called years ago, before the internet, a pen pal? You know what a pen pal is? Become a pen pal for one of the unchurched kids in Awana. Except they don't sit down and use pen and paper and write letters. What do? They send them emails. Now, they could send letters, I guess, if they want to, but they just become a friend to the kids in Awana who aren't in church, whose families don't come to church. Would that work? Could that be a ministry for 12-year-olds in church? Are there any other ministries for 12-year-olds in church? Helping with children's church? Being a pen pal for someone in Awana? Our church serves breakfast every Sunday morning to raise money to help support camp in the summer for kids who go to camp. Could 12-year-olds help in the kitchen with the breakfast? They probably can't cook the breakfast, but they could do what? serve people and pick up plates and clean things up and do that kind of thing? Do you hire someone at your church to clean the building, or do you have volunteers to come in and clean the buildings on Saturday before, to get ready for church on Sunday? Our church uses volunteers. Could 12-year-olds help clean the building? Are there plenty of things for 12-year-olds to be doing that would involve them in service? So, you guys got started doing it when you were 12. Did all the 12-year-olds in your church do it, or just a few of you?
Just a few, I think.
Why weren't the rest of them doing it? Is it time for the two of you and TAC to change the world? Especially with youth ministers, say, you know what, it's time for us. Okay, I have a theory about this. People criticize America for saying children are being allowed to be children too long. They don't grow up and become responsible. And I say, so whose fault is that? Is that their fault, or is that the fault of the adults in our world who have enabled them and even required them to be children so long instead of letting them learn to become young adults? Our daughters, when they were adolescents, when they were teenagers, have you ever heard of Camp Comcito? Okay, City Union Mission, who ministers to inner city people, they have a camp in the Ozarks where they take little children from the inner city to live at a camp in the country for a week. And they need staff people to live in the cabins with these little kids to help them get dressed and everything and supervise them and take them to their playground. Our daughters would go down there every summer and be counselors for little children in Camp Comcito. There are so many ministries to little children. Okay, good news clubs. Okay. Okay, let's take me, Esther. Well, that's not fair. Esther's young enough. Take me, my wife, and my daughter. No, and my granddaughter. And we all three teach a good news club. Who will the little kids listen to the most intently? The old guy, the old woman, or the teenage girl? The teenage girl. Every time. They listen to the people who are closest to their age group. If that's the case, we've made a mistake by not involving teenagers in our outreach to children. And I think CEF does a marvelous job of using teenagers, giving them an opportunity to minister to children. And teenagers are probably more effective than adults are in many respects. Well, okay, we're out of time. See you tomorrow. Bring some more applesauce. Bring some regular Oreos. I'm telling you, I live in a needy world.